ahead according with our program. Our next presenter is Professor Tatiana Govorushenko from Khmelnytsky National University. Welcome, Tatiana, if you could share your screen and present your paper. I know the problem with energy consumption, but hope for such possibility.
Thank you, Vyacheslav Sergeyevich. Dear colleagues, good morning. My name is Tatiana Govorushenko. I don't have a stable internet connection, but I try show my presentation. And can you see my presentation now?
Yes, we see and we hear you. Please.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Our presentation is characteristics and method of forming the user information portrait identification of a user on the internet is legitimate calculation and setting of a unique identifier for each browser that visits a certain site. Such identification has a number of advantages. The ability to distinguish ordinary users from bots, the ability to save user preferences and apply them on the next visit, personalizations services, detection of fraud on the internet and the launch of targeted attacks, detection of intrusion, ability to form contextual advertising and targeting of information. Identification of the user provides an opportunity to form his information portrait. The concept of information portrait of a user outlines the basic information required for the verification of a certain user's data. It is a set of all user data and the results of his communicative activity. And so the components of the user information portrait are the web content created by the user on the internet, as well as his personal data. Therefore, the creation of information portrait of the user is an actual task for today. And the analysis of known methods and solutions showed that the analyzed methods and tools don't solve the problem of forming the information portrait of the internet user. So the purpose of our study is to select the characteristics of the information portrait of the user and to develop a method of forming the information portrait of the user on the internet. We have selected characteristics of the user information portrait. The information portrait of the user is the set IPU, which you can see on the slide. Information content of the internet is the set ICIN, and set of characteristics of the internet is the set KWIM. The characteristics of the internet user include all data related to a specific user and his activities on the internet, namely open registration data, which he provides when registering in various social networks, online stores, web services, surveys, etc. Now this set consists of 50 characteristics, which are presented in our paper, but the set of 50 characteristics is not complete, of course, and the number of these characteristics may change due to the possibility of obtaining information for such characteristics. And now this set only shows an example of such characteristics at this moment of time. The analysis of the characteristics of the information portrait allowed us to conclude that the information portrait of the user is formed by the first 45 characteristics from 50 characteristics. And this set is IPU TG. The analysis of the characteristics made it possible to form a set of characteristics which form the information portrait of the user, which will be used for the forming the image of the user. These are 25 characteristics which you can see on the slide. This is set IPU IM. Using the methods of user identification on the internet to collect the characteristics, now we have developed a method of forming the user information portrait, which consists of the next stages. The first stage is using the methods of user identification on the internet to collect the characteristics that form the information portrait of the user for the targeting of information and to fill the set IPUTG. Second stage of our method is using the methods of user identification to collect the characteristics that form the information portrait, which for forming the image of the user on the internet and to fill the first row of the matrix IPU IMT. For each characteristics, third stage of our method, for each characteristic that forms the information portrait of the user, for forming of the user's image, to find out the web resource from which this characteristic was taken, and to fill the second row of the matrix IPU IMT. Fourth stage of our method to analyze with the involvement of experts the web resources from which the characteristics were taken, and to analyze the elements of the second row of the matrix IPU IMT. Next stage of method is to establish the degree of trust with the involvement of experts too in the web resources from which the characteristics were taken. To establish the degree of trust in the elements of the second row of the matrix IPU IMT. The degree of trust is numbers from the range from 0 to 1, where 0 is a web resource that cannot be trusted at all, and 1 is a web resource that has 100% degree of trust. And to fill the third row of the matrix IPU IMT with the values of the degrees of trust. And last stage of our method is if the value of the degree of trust is in interval from 0.5 to 1, that is the degree of trust in the web resource from which the age characteristic was taken is at least 50%, then to transfer then to transfer the element of the first row of the matrix IPU IMT into the set IPU IM as its age element. The developed method makes it possible to determine the characteristics that form the user information portrait for targeting of information and for forming the user's image on the internet. An important aspect of the developed method is that when determining the characteristics that form an information portrait for user's image on the internet, the degree of trust in the web resource from which this that characteristic is taken is considered. In our paper, we have developed, conducted the case study of the implementation of the developed method, and this case study illustrated the work of the developed method and forming the information portrait of user for targeting information and for forming user image. And conclusions, in our research, we have selected characteristics that form an information portrait of the user. We have developed method of forming the user information portrait, and we have conducted the case study. Our future directions of our research are increasing the set of characteristics of the internet user, prioritizing and weighting characteristics of the internet user, and using of the behavioral mechanism of the social networks for user identification. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Now we can ask Professor Gorushenko about this report. Welcome. My short question. Your presentation is related to aspect of internet safety as well, as I understood. I mean, it's development of portrait of users in point of view, customers of different human interaction aspects. Yes.
Yes. User information portrait may be useful for targeting information, for advertising, for social sciences, and for safety, for safety provided, because it will be oriented for detection of fraud on the internet, the launch of targeted attacks, detection of intrusion, etc.
Thank you. And the second very short question: can this approach, these techniques, can be used for assurance of internet safety for childs? I mean, we know this problem for children, and what about this aspect of possible application in your research?
No, I think that our method can be used for this task, but now we don't have considered this task.
Yes, but I think it would be very interesting to analyze this possibility, because it is a very important part of internet safety.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now we invite for